Good morning, students. Welcome back in our SST online class. Students, today we are taking our civics portion. Chapter first, what is democracy? Why democracy? Students, in this chapter, first of all, it is necessary to know we will take what topics. Students, in this chapter, first of all, we will take the simple meaning of the democracy. And then we will define the different facets of the democracy, and in step by step we will examine the different terms of the democracy are involved in the definition. Students, then we will take the major features of a democratic country, and then we will able to distinguish between a non-democratic government from a democratic government. Students, at the last of the chapter, we will take the broader meaning of the democracy. Okay, students, now first point is why there is a need to define the democracy. Why there is a need to define the definition of a democratic country. First of all, what is the simple definition? The democracy means the Greek word demokratia. Demos plus kratia. It means demos means people and kratia means rule. People's rule. By the word of the Abraham Lincoln, the democracy is the form of government to the people, for the people, by the people. Students, now the simple definition of the democratic country is the rulers are elected by the people. In a democratic country, all the rulers are elected by the people. Okay, students, now we are taking the features of the democratic country. Students, our first point is major decisions are taken by the elected leader. You know that in a democratic country, the rulers are elected by the people, and by the election, the representatives are taking decision on the behalf of the people. Representatives keep in mind that the people are selecting and they know the wish of the people, and in every work in administration, in making rules, they know to keep in mind that all the people are giving their vote. If they are not making good work for them, in next election, the people will change them. So major decisions are taken by the rulers. Students, now we are taking one example. Pakistan. In Pakistan, under General Pervez Musharraf, called a democratic country? No. In Pakistan, in 1999, October, the General Pervez Musharraf, by the help of military coup, overthrew the democratic government, and that time, Pakistan General Pervez Musharraf was a very powerful person, and by the support of military, he became the president. Students, what type of strategy he has taken there? First of all, in 2002, General Pervez Musharraf held a referendum. What do you mean by the referendum? Referendum means election. You take the point of the view of the people in any issue, yes or no. That time, by the referendum, the Pervez Musharraf government extended the 5 years period. And that time media, democratic activists and other countries criticized this referendum. The referendum was based on fraud and malpractice. Student, first of all, Pervez Musharraf amended a law and he changed the constitution 4 times and gained all the power. By the order legal framework, he made a security council and got all the power. Now the president have to dismiss the local legislative bodies and the national bodies. By this order, now Pervez Musharraf got many powers. And by election, the elected leaders are not powerful. All the power vested in president. Then we can say, under General Pervez Musharraf in 1999, Pakistan was not a democratic country. So that people have right to vote. But actually all the powers are rest in president. Our second feature is free and fair election. You know that elections are held in a particular time of period, but it should be in a free and fair manner. To understand this, let us take examples of China and Mexico. In China, elections are regularly held after every 5 years for electing the country's parliament, called National People's Congress. The National People's Congress has the power to appoint the president of the country. It has nearly 3,000 members elected from all over China. Some members are elected by the army. Before contesting elections, a candidate needs the approval of Chinese Communist Party. Only those who are members of the Chinese Communist Party or 8 smaller parties allied to it were allowed to contest elections. The government is always formed by the Communist Party. In Mexico, since its independence in 1930, Mexico holds elections after every 6 years to elect its president. The country has never been under a military or dictator's rule. But until 2000, every election was won by a party called PRI, Institutional Revolutionary Party. Opposition parties did contest elections but never managed to win. The PRI was known to use many dirty tricks to win elections. They are: all those who were employed in government offices had to attend its party meetings. Teachers of government schools used to force parents to vote for the PRI. Media largely ignored the activities of opposition political parties except to criticize them. Sometimes the polling booths were shifted from one place to another. The PRI spent a large sum of money in the campaign for its candidates. By these examples, we get a sense that we cannot call these countries democratic. There are many problems here. In China, the elections do not offer the people any serious choice. They have to choose the ruling party and the candidates approved by it. Can we call this a choice? In the Mexican example, people seem to really have a choice, but in practice, they had no choice. There was no way the ruling party could be defeated, even if people were against it. These are not fair elections. In our next point, one person, one vote, one value. Students, you know that the main feature of a democratic country is right to vote. In some countries, all the right to vote is not given for minority and the majority. Majority people are more powerful than minority. We are taking the case of Saudi Arabia. Before 2015, the women of Saudi Arabia didn't have the right to vote. After 2015, they have the right to vote and stand in elections. In Estonia, students, you know that the citizenship rule as prepared that the Russian minority people are not getting the right to vote. And in Fiji, the indigenous Fiji people having more right to vote value than an Indian Fiji. So students, you know that in 3 countries, they called a democratic country or not? No, they are not called democratic country because some minorities, people having no right to vote, their value is less than majority. Our next point is rule of law and respect for rights. Zimbabwe attained independence from white minority rule in 1980. Since then, the country has been ruled by ZANU-PF, the party that led the freedom struggle. Its leader Robert Mugabe has been ruling the country since independence. Elections have been held regularly and always won by ZANU-PF. President Mugabe is popular but also uses unfair practices in elections. Over the years, his government has changed the constitution several times to increase the powers of the president and make him less accountable. Opposition party workers are harassed and their meetings disrupted. Public protests and demonstrations against the government are declared illegal. There is a law that limits the right to criticize the president. Television and radio are controlled by the government and give only the ruling party's version. There are independent newspapers, but the government harasses those journalists who go against it. The government has ignored some court judgments that went against it and has pressurized judges. If we wish to assess a democracy, it is important to look at the elections. There should be sufficient room for normal political activity, including political opposition in the period before elections. This requires that the state should respect some basic rights of the citizen. They should be free to think, to have opinion, to express this in public, to form association, to protest and take other political actions. Everyone should be equal in the eyes of law. These rights must be protected by an independent country. By all these aspects, we know that a democratic government runs within the limits of a constitutional power and the citizens' right. Students, we will take other topics in our next class: arguments against democracy, arguments for democracy, and the broader meaning of democracy. Thank you.